I'm also pretty ruthless. I don't have like my email notification. They don't bing or anything.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello. My name is Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Jo's interviewing Sue Hedaux of ReThink Productivity. Sue was introduced to us by her husband and business partner Simon from show number 163. Sue is a retail and productivity professional with broad experience encompassing regional management, customer experience program leadership, operational productivity improvement and store salary budgeting. She is passionate about helping brands and teams bring continuous improvement to their operation and customers' experiences. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Sue Headaux of ReThink Productivity. I nearly tripped over the words there. So welcome, Sue. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Jo. Thanks for asking me on.
And you are the other half of one of my previous guests. So I think I said when I interviewed Simon that I think I've had one couple come on together. And I don't think I've interviewed two people who are a couple or work together yet. So so this will be interesting to get the other side of the story.
Yes.
So start by telling us a bit about who you are, what you do and where you do it.
So Sue, I'm one of the founders of ReThink Productivity. We're based in Shrewsbury, nice part of the world. Mm-hmm. And I've done lots of things in my work career. And the two things that have been constants through that really have been productivity and customer experience. Mm-hmm. And I actually started out as a pharmacist. So I'm a qualified pharmacist and then worked for Boots for a long time. So did the usual thing of working through stores and area manager, became regional manager. I also did lots of different jobs in head office. So although I was there 24 and a bit years, I actually didn't do the same thing for more than about 18 months at a time, really. So worked in all the different functions and did lots of different jobs from finance through to in the beauty, looking after the own brand cosmetics, say regional management, all sorts of different things. So it was a great experience. And I then went to work for a customer experience company in Moment. So I was working for them when we first started the business and eventually reached a point of thinking, we were getting busier with our own business. And kind of it seemed better to be building our own business than building somebody else's business. So at that stage, which was about 18 months ago now, moved over so that both Simon and I are full-time within ReThink, and we expanded our team as well. So we were able to take on more people as well, because we've got the capacity to do it. So it was kind of that mix of customer experience and productivity come together. So for me, productivity is not slash and burn type, cost cutting. It's about how we help clients make sure they've got really healthy businesses that are viable, that are growing, because you have to look after your cost base if you're going to have a viable business. And actually to give them the capacity to grow and take on new opportunities. So you have to know where you've got capacity so you can then know what else you can take on. So that's the sort of thing that we do, and that's how I got here.
Lovely. And I remember Simon and I had a lengthy conversation about how wonderful retail is, as that's my background too. Yes. And you sort of made a point that I've often made in the past is about the fact that a lot of people in big retail companies work there for a long time, and people sort of think that's unusual compared to some careers. But as you pointed out, there's so many different
aspects in a large retail organisation that really you can spend your whole career there and as you say, not do the same job for very long each time, or at least be in the same place, because obviously as you move stores as well, that adds variety too.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't manage to get into the HR or people teams, but I think I worked in every other function and worked in different parts of the country and all over the place as well. So
yeah.
Good fun.
So for you, how has that transition been, going from working for a large company via what sounds like a sort of smaller company to now your own company? What did you imagine that's what you would do, and how does it feel having done it?
Well, it's strange really, because when I was like little, my career ambitions were either to work in a shoe shop or be a cafe lady. So if you'd asked me that when I was 5 or 6, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that mix of retail and probably having your own business, which is ultimately, when you look at my overall career, what I've ended up doing. So I wouldn't have necessarily thought that I would have my own business, and it was kind of more Simon's drive to do something than mine. And actually I really enjoy it, and it's felt like a natural progression. And in some ways, you know, even through my years at Boots, I've always kind of tried to make the decisions that I thought were right for the business anyway. And fortunately, working at Boots, that always aligned what I thought was the right direction, was where Boots were going as well. Mm-hmm. So I was fortunate that I didn't ever feel particularly constrained by the fact I was in a big organisation, and I always knew lots of people and, you know, how to get things done and all that sort of thing. So a lot of those skills are kind of just the same. It's just the context is different. I think it did help going and working for another business. So I was there for a few years and was home-based. So that was good. I've made that transition to being home-based. There was an office that I went to once a week, but generally I was based at home, but it meant in reality I was out and about with clients and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that was good because it was a much smaller company. There was only like 30 of us in the UK. So that was, you know, compared to being in a mammoth business like Boots, that was different. So actually it felt quite easy really then moving into doing stuff for ourselves at home.
Mm-hmm. And you were working, I think I remember, a bit with Simon already whilst doing your other job. So I guess it was quite challenging probably to begin with, trying to sort of juggle everything. Yes,
as we got busier, then trying to fit everything in became more of a challenge. And I went down from doing 5 days at my other job to doing 4. So that freed up a bit of time. But yeah, it did reach that point about, right, which business am I really going to focus on and grow? So that was just when it seemed a logical point to move, really.
Mm-hmm. So I remember talking to Simon a bit about, you know, what's it like working with your spouse? And we talked a bit about, you know, whether you work in the same office or not and that sort of thing. How has that worked from your point of view? In fact, we were just laughing before we came on that I think there was a bit where Simon and I said, so Sue won't hear it anyway. And I think he was complimenting you on bringing some structure to some of the work that he was doing, if I remember rightly, or it's something positive.
Yes.
Anyway. And yeah, because I remember now, he said, you know, at times you were sort of disagreeing with him and he was finding it hard to sort of hand over some of that responsibility, and he acknowledges that now. It sounds like it was probably quite challenging at the time. How did it work for you? Because you were coming into an existing business having sort of dabbled, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, because you were
that's what it was.
Doing something else as well, and then you came in full time. How did that transition go for you?
I guess it was easier for me because I hadn't got a territory that was previously mine that I was having to share.
Yeah.
So it was probably easier from that point of view. And I think one of the challenges was, to start with, it's kind of finding your feet as to what you both do. So that was the bigger challenge. And almost to start off with, we were both doing a bit of everything. And then we decided that we had a conversation with a guy that does strategy and now helps smaller businesses. So Stuart Cross at Morgan Cross Consulting. And although he usually works with big organisations, he's started a scheme where he'll work with smaller organisations if you support his CSR agenda, which is to sponsor a sports aid athlete. So Sports Aid is the charity that supports athletes that are sort of 15, 16, younger athletes that are trying to get to the Olympics, or they're very good prospects in their sport. So Sport Aid find all these people that are looking for extra help, and kind of it's £1,000 to sponsor them. So we actually sponsored 2 and kind of had some really good quality time from Stuart.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting down and looking at our strategy and everything that we kind of could be doing, we identified some black holes really in things that we weren't doing as much of in terms of marketing and perhaps developing leads as things as we could be. Not that we were doing badly, it's just as your business grows, you need to take on different things and you get to different stages and have to do extra stuff.
Yeah.
So there were some gaps that we missed. And then it was really helpful talking to Stuart about, he was talking about, well, which bits did we both enjoy? And there were certain bits that Simon didn't like and then really enjoyed. And fortunately, the things that we liked and disliked were well matched. That meant we could say, well, actually, it looks sensible that you split the business this way. So
Right.
I do more of the delivery piece and Simon does more of the business development. And it's not as black and white as that, because there's always crossovers and things. But actually that really helped, because it gave us each our own territory, if you like, to get our teeth into and manage. So that was a really useful session for us. And that was probably about 6 months in.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know all the theories of marital attraction and whether we always do go for people who are different to ourselves, but it would be helpful if that was the case, and then working together you could split it and everyone would be happy.
Yes.
Certainly it's worked from your point of view. So
I think the biggest challenge actually is the fact that kind of when you're both working together, it's so easy to say, well, actually we need to get some time together, well, we'll just put it in on Sunday afternoon because it's quite a time. So instead of having that chill time, then perhaps we'll say, well, we'll just slot that in. Or it's so easy to have those conversations outside of office hours, if you like.
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge, is how do you stop it? And I think that must be a challenge for lots of people that are home based. It's kind of how do you keep that discipline of when's work and when's not, because it can all just become one.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, for an individual working from home with their own business, it can sort of scope creep, if you like. You can end up working a bit later or popping into the office to carry on working or whatever. But I guess when you've got a spouse who's not involved, sometimes you'll probably get shut down when you're trying to bore them with detail that they're not interested in. But as you say, when you've both got a vested interest in it, it's much more likely that you'll forget to stop talking about it.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
Yes.
So what do your days look like? How do you work with your clients? How do you get done what you need to get done?
Well, when we're working with clients, there's a mix of doing things on site. And obviously, since we've had lockdown, a lot more people are more amenable to using, Zoom or whatever it is, Google Teams and that sort of thing, which is helpful for some of the time. I think there's no replacing really some face-to-face contact with people, particularly when you're trying to establish those relationships. I think it can really help for people to meet you and to spend time with them. And I find it really helpful to get an understanding of what's important to the client, so that then when we're tailoring the work for them, we can, we're making sure that we're hitting the things. Perhaps to get to the unspoken things, you have to spend time, I think, with people.
Yeah.
So, we do spend time when we're out scoping projects and that sort of thing. We like them to walk them through the operations so we get to see what they're doing. So that's always useful. But actually, there's often catch-ups or interim reporting or interim updates on things that we found that actually you can do fairly quickly. There might just be a quick half an hour Zoom call, whereas otherwise you might have travelled 2 or 3 hours for a 1 hour meeting that didn't need to be that long, really.
Yeah.
So I think that's a benefit. So it just varies what's happening. We do such a mix of projects, so some can be relatively short, and some will last weeks and weeks, and we'll have a different time with that. So, and I think the challenge comes when we've got multiple projects live, which is the usual situation, and it's just making sure that between project setup, project being live, and then actually the reporting back bit, that there's, I've got my time mapped out so that I know that I've got time to do all of them and do them well.
Yeah.
So I think it's not so much what my day looks like. I have to get that macro planning right, and then everything else has to fall around that. So there's always the bits that you just wedge in.
Yeah.
I remember when I was at Boots, it was great in that we went on lots of leadership courses and various management things and all that over the time. And I remember they were talking about time management, and it's that classic example which has always stayed with me. But if you want to if you fill a bell jar with, excuse me, if you fill a bell jar with rocks, it looks like it's full, but then you put the smaller rocks in, and then the sand, and then the water, and that's how you fill your time up. So I think I kind of did take on that thing about what's the big stuff that I have to do, and how do I carve out time for that.
Yes.
So the things like, to me, it's really important, the quality of the insights that we generate for our clients. And it's one of the bits that I really enjoy. And you have to pull together data from different sources. And I pull on my retail experience and practical experience of how businesses run. So when you're pulling all that together, you just need time to sort of submerge yourself into it and then see what are the big topics that come out.
Yeah.
And there isn't a way to shortcut it, and you can't do it by 10 minutes here and there. I have to put in the chunk of time and submerge myself. And then everything else just fits around it, really, including walking the dog and the chores and all the rest.
Yeah. So in this day and age of, firstly, many of us working from home, and as you say, using online tools for meetings, which I'm finding is filling my diary rather than the opposite, and the whole thing about sort of digital, clutter, notifications and availability and everything else. How do you carve out that time for those deep dives into that work? Because it's, lots of us are unable to seemingly focus past quite a short space of time without having to check our phone or go and do something different. It sounds like you absorb yourself into something. Is that something you do naturally, or have you created some sort of strategies to enable you to do that?
I think it's, to a degree, it's kind of the way I like to work. The other thing is I'm really conscious of when's my best time to do that. So I know my brain's best first thing in the morning. So if I've got something important that I've got to think about, then I'll kind of get up early, walk the dog, then I'll sit down. The downside of that is if somebody comes at 10 o'clock, I might still be in my dressing gown, and I do feel the need to say, I have been at my desk since 7. This is me, halfway through my day. It's just I've not managed to fit in my shower yet, and that's where I'm headed. Yeah. So it's kind of that flexibility of being at home. That is one of the joys of it, because you can't do that in an office, can you? You're stuck more with those times.
Yes.
I think using that time when I know I'm at my best, and then having a break, and then going and doing something else. And I quite like doing the admin bits, because that gives my brain a bit of a switch to something else, and then I can go back to it again later once I've kind of come up a bit. Yeah. And I always find with the big projects that's quite useful, because I kind of need to get into it and then let my subconscious work a bit on it, and the things that stick are the things that are important then, and it pulls out the things that are niggling, there's something there. So I like to let my mind percolate on it while I'm doing other things, and then come back to it.
No, it's really interesting. And as you say, two big things there. I think firstly, finding the right time in your energy cycle, and as you say, allowing that percolation of ideas. It's something that I'm really keen on. I used to sort of get annoyed with myself that I hadn't just sort of done something, taken action quickly on something, and that I seemed to be spending like days on it. And now I realise that often it's because of exactly that I'm waiting, I'm pondering and seeing what else comes up and whether it feels right and all that sort of thing. And I think it's all in the positioning to yourself as to whether you're sort of, I call it productive procrastination sometimes, because it feels like it's procrastinating, but actually it's creating something better at the end of it.
Well, there have been times when I remember when I was at Boots, there'd be times when there'd be kind of, you were trying to find the way through things, and there'd be lots of different factors to take into account, and I had to kind of think about it and think, we're not better anyway. And actually then going for a run, and at the end of the run, I'd think, right, I know the answer. And it's back to, you said, it's that procrastination, but it's active procrastination. So the answer came out once I'd given it, freed up my brain, I think, to think about it properly without me getting in the way.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's even more important when we're working from home to sort of be aware of that, because we perhaps, I don't know, if we commute to the office, we might have a period of time where we can think about it on the journey and that sort of thing. But when we're not going anywhere, we've got to sort of make those times. I mean, you've obviously got the dog walk. I would imagine that's quite productive time.
Yes, it is.
But if you don't have those moments naturally, you have to sort of find them, don't you?
Yes. I'm also pretty ruthless. I don't have like my email notification. They don't bing or anything. I'm the same with my phone. My phone's on silent and it'll buzz and I just ignore it because I'll have times when I look at it and then times when I won't. If I'm concentrating, I kind of won't even notice it, but it's buzzed sort of thing. So
yes, yeah. And so how do you manage your tasks? How do you have a to-do list? Do you use tools? Is it pen and paper, as is the case with most of my guests?
I've always been a list person and I find lists really useful because I think it gets it out of my head. So once it's on a list, I can forget about it. See what I mean? It frees up brain space, I think.
Yes.
So I've always been a big list person. However, I've found a new tool that I'm increasingly using, which is Headaux, which is a sort of project management collaborative tool. And we started using it for our projects. So, for the setup, because it can be used by our team and the project managers and everybody can see what's in it.
Yeah.
But actually, I found that I like it so much that I've now started for my tasks. I write quite a lot of articles, so I log all those in there. So I've been doing it for long-term things to keep a track on it. But then I've also started it for 1 or 2 short-term things. It kind of lets you set up a list of tasks. So it'll have, it's got a stream of different activities that you can then put a task in. It lets you mark them off when it's done. You put in dates. So then I always tie that back. So when I do my planning, I then put things in my calendar. So I know if I know I've got to do whatever it is at a certain time by a certain date, I'll book a chunk of time in my calendar and colour it a different colour. So I know that that's a big chunk of work that I've got to do and that's when it needs to be done by.
Yeah.
I find Headaux really good. You can pay, there's a complicated one you can pay for. I just use the free one and find it really helpful.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's good. And I hadn't heard of that before, although I presume Simon probably mentioned it, so maybe I have heard it before and so I'm not remembering. So lovely. And any other technology tools or apps that you use?
The other one that I found made a big difference to me is QuickBooks. And I hated it to start with a passion. Because obviously, like a lot of businesses, we were kind of forced to move over to an electronic way of doing it. And it felt like it was designed for accountants. But now I've got into the swing of it compared to the process that we used to use for our month end and then VAT returns. They used to take forever. It used to be like half a day. Whereas this, I do the month end in less than 10 minutes now.
Wow.
So it's, really big change.
Yes.
So it was a painful learning curve and I watched lots of YouTube videos and help topics and even phoned them up a couple of times and the support is pretty good. But it saved me a lot of time.
And that's a really key point, isn't it? How often there's stuff that can help us to do things quicker, better, faster, whatever. But we have to, invest the time up front for that to be the end result, and often we don't. It's a bit like outsourcing. I talk often about how much time that frees up and how much that is a real benefit within an organisation. But for the first bit, when you have to do it, and I'm just doing it at the moment. I'm procrastinating massively on my networking group. I have this stuff that I need to be done and I'm going to outsource it to my VA, and it's taken me 2 weeks and I've still not done it because I've got to record a video showing her what I need her to do and creating the process and everything else. I know once I've done it, it'll just run like clockwork and I won't need to worry about it or think about it, but it's just that initial thing, as you say, that is difficult, and then afterwards you think, why didn't I do it sooner?
Yes, we're just going through a similar thing at the moment. We're setting up on HubSpot, so we've got an email database, which is kind of one of the things that we realised that we hadn't done very much so far, and actually getting used to that is hard work. But we have taken the advice of somebody, so we put something on at Upworks to find an expert that could really help us through setting it up. So that was partly based on the QuickBooks experience where I muddled through. I was thinking, there must be a way to get us through this quicker, and there might be things that we'd learn and work out how to do ourselves, whereas actually there's some shortcuts and some tips and things that if we can learn from somebody else and accelerate what we do, then that's got to be better. So we've learned a bit from the QuickBooks pain when we're doing this next one.
Yes, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, how often we do go through that pain. I'm just reflecting on one of the members of my Power to Live More Calm membership, who has access to me to help her with stuff. And I remember her asking recently about something, and she told me she'd spent all morning trying to do this one thing, and I can't even remember what it was now, but it was something that I literally did in 5 minutes and explained, this is how you do it for next time, sort of thing. And it was like, why didn't you just ask? But we have this sort of thing in our head where we think, I'm not going to be beaten by this, there must be a way, I'm not stupid, I can work it out. And then 3 hours have gone by.
Yes.
Which, when in her case you have somebody that you're paying to help you, is even more silly, isn't it?
And I think it's one of the challenges when you are kind of a smaller business consultancy working from home, because you're having to do everything.
Yeah.
When I worked at Boots, I was doing this bit, and those, I didn't have to look at invoices, somebody else did that. Whereas now I do have to look at them and do have to sort it all out.
Yeah.
So, you do have to learn a lot of skills, and you're suddenly trying to be everybody. And there's a bit of a challenge where you think, well, I have to really understand this and know it myself. I think one of the things we found is there's so many little jobs that, because of the sort of gig economy and things like Upworks, where you can just put on a job and say, right, we need some one-off help with this.
Yeah.
And actually, it's relatively low cost. And the amount of time that you would spend trying to do it and not do such a good job, it really makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're working with a local sort of visualization agencies. They do design work and that sort of thing for us, and it's so much better than I could do, and it's quick, so that really helps. I think it takes you a bit of a while to get confident with what you're doing before you're then able to say to somebody else that I need some help with this.
Yeah. And it's that whole thing about investing some money to save you time or to get a better quality end result. I think is quite hard for especially people new into business when money is even more sort of important, in terms of not spending too much, sort of thing. It's getting into the mindset of actually working out the value and the benefit of spending that money, and the fact that often it's really worth doing that rather than sort of scrimping and saving and doing your own job, sort of thing, that takes you 5 times as long, and you could have been going out finding a new customer instead, sort of thing.
Yes, you're right. It's when it's your money, it's definitely your money, isn't it? When it's your business, it feels like a different decision. Whereas actually, if I put myself in Boots' world, it's like, is it worth me doing that? Absolutely not. It needs to be somebody else.
Yes,
when it's your cash, it can become a different discussion, can't it?
Yes, exactly. So what about keeping yourself full of energy for running your business? You've talked about dog walking. I'm guessing that's one of your strategies. What other sorts of things do you ensure that you do to keep yourself able to run the business successfully?
Well, I do other exercise as well, so I try and fit in something most days in addition to the walk. And I just feel so much better when I've done some exercise. It's kind of, whether it's managing stress. I don't particularly ever feel stress, but it's that sort of thing. It's kind of, it just really helps me just focus on something else and, get my body moving rather than just sitting on my chair at my desk all day. And then recently I read Mackie Walker's book, Why We Sleep, which I've seen lots in train stations and stuff, and then Simon bought it and I got round to reading it, and that's really made me focus much more on how much sleep I get. I'm an early waker, and it's kind of quite tempting to kind of stay up a bit later, and then you find you're squeezing your amount of time of sleep. But reading his book about the impact of not having sleep and the benefits of having enough sleep really made me think differently about it. So sleep is a big one as well.
Yes, I think I've got that book on Kindle awaiting reading along with hundreds of other books. And maybe I should do that, because I know it's important, but exactly as you say, there are other things that get in the way, and then it becomes the thing that goes out the window. So maybe I need a bit of extra oomph to it.
Well, and you read what he says about the importance of kind of the impact it has on you if you haven't got enough sleep on all your different body systems. I suspect you give it a read, and then you'll do more sleeping, I bet.
Yes, well, I mean, one of the things that's been interesting for us during lockdown is having our 13-year-old pretty much running on her own schedule, and she's as much a night bird as I am, so like she's awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, but then she doesn't get up till probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I know there's lots of stuff about going to sleep before 12 being better for you and everything else, but she really is like me, a night bird, and our clocks are a bit weird. But it's really interesting how she's grown so much in 5 months, and I'm sure it's because she's had so much more sleep than she normally would do.
Yeah. Well, in the book, he writes about the fact that he thinks the world's designed for larks rather than
Exactly.
adults.
Yeah.
And particularly school. And there are some interesting school trials where they've started school later and things, haven't they?
Yes.
And the fact that that's had on learning and all the rest of it. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's one of the things, we've felt it's been really positive in lots of ways. I mean, she's a lot of a procrastinator. So we've had to, bear in mind she's 13, back off and not keep asking how she's getting on with her schoolwork. And we've not seen lots of evidence of her doing it. However, she just got as good a school report as ever. It was a very good one. So clearly something was happening.
Yes, that's good.
But yeah, we've always said that school is not, she has to get up and get on a school bus normally at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's not designed for her at all. So it has been a real benefit from her.
Yes, that's the middle of the night for her, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, she can't. And I know, I've been doing lots of coaching during lockdown with people in Australia, which means that I have to coach in the morning. And normally I don't schedule anything until the afternoon. And then the morning, is me waking up whenever I want to and, sort of getting organised for starting work a bit later. But because I'm having to start work earlier, I really should be going to bed sooner the night before.
Yes.
And I just physically can't. And I know I should. And I manage it on some occasions, but it's just really difficult. So I absolutely know her challenges, because as much as I might say, go to bed, you're only 13, it's physically, your body wants to do something different. So interesting. Oh, yes, I'll go away and read that. Thank you.
Yes.
No chance of me getting her to read it, slim to none, but we shall see. So what about learning and improving as you sort of go? I mean, again, Simon and I talked about how much we all learnt working in retail, because our organisations just invested in everything, didn't they? So we got to learn. And as you say, all the different departments you got to work in, you sort of continually learning. How have you ensured that's happening now you're working for yourself?
One formal way that I do it is, because I'm a pharmacist, I have to do a certain amount of continuing professional development. So there's a really useful framework for pharmacists that you have to follow, and you have to say that you've done it, you have to submit your evidence on a portal and that sort of thing. So it's a really useful discipline. So every year I have to do 4 cycles of CPD, which is kind of learning. It can be, there are events I can go to, there's e-learning, there's all sorts of different things you can do and use. And it doesn't have to be like particularly about a pharmacy topic. It can be about leadership or project management or whatever you want it to be, what's relevant to your job. So that discipline, that framework of having to submit it, I find really useful. So I always make sure that I do that. And then the other 2 parts of it that they introduced recently that you have to do is a reflective account. So it forces you to reflect back on something significant that happened, and it has to be linked to some of the key behaviours and professional standards that they're looking for. So leadership is usually one of them. But to actually think back what you did and what you do differently next time, again, a really useful exercise to have to go through. And then the other one's peer discussion. So you have to speak to somebody about a pharmacy situation, or your situation related to your professional life, and what decisions you've made, what your challenges were, what decisions you've made. So again, it's kind of a mix of reflective. It's a bit like a counselling session in a way. So that's another really useful way of thinking about what you do and learning. And you have to write those up and submit them. I think the valuable bit is actually the reflection time. Because I've done it, at my age, I've done quite a lot of different stuff. And some of the time it's just a matter of stopping and thinking and realising what you have learned, because it's so easy to just keep going on and on and on and doing the same things, or, finding different things, but not really thinking about it and embedding it, sort of thing. So I found that a really useful discipline.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we don't always reflect, do we, on anything? Never mind on our learning. Yeah.
Especially when you're busy, it feels like there's always something else to do.
Yes.
The fact to have to do it means it goes in my diary and I have to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I've invested in a couple of things, and been lucky enough to be gifted a couple of things that I would really like to learn. But as you say, it's at the bottom of the to-do list every day, because all the,
Yes.
the client work, or the sort of urgent stuff happens, and not that learning. I guess if I was being checked up on on it, I'd be
Yes.
more likely to do it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's what I need to. I need to create a sort of need for it to happen. I mean, one of the things is about Facebook advertising, and I'm coaching people that are going to be shortly studying it themselves. So clearly that's going to force me to do it, because I need to
Yes.
be one step ahead of them. But some of the other
Yeah.
things are a bit more developmental. So I need to try and think of some incentive to make those more important during that time. So
Yes.
So last couple of questions. Firstly, what about those days where it all goes horribly wrong? How do you deal with those?
I try not to have too many of them, which is a good plan. So, I mean, that's a bit of a glib answer, but in reality, the project planning that we do, and then the tracking of projects as we go through. So we're trying to keep an eye on things to say, are they on track all the way through? So try and make sure you catch things. If things are going slightly off track or not quite you expected, then taking action then, rather than waiting until it's, some huge car crash and think off the rails. So that really helps. And then my approach to sort of worry is that I don't really do worrying. So I've always had the attitude that if I can do something about it, I should do it. So just crack on and get it done.
Yep.
And if you can't do anything about it, then don't worry, because you can't do anything about it anyway.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's to do with the client, then we'd always let them know. But that way of thinking means that I always try and come up with options. So, right, this is happening. We don't want that to happen. What can we do? So what are the options? And usually in reviewing that, it becomes clear there's one or two of them are great. So either we can then sort it ourselves, or you have a discussion with the client and then put it right that way. So it's that sort of approach, really. And obviously there's frustrations and that sort of thing whenever things don't quite go to plan. But really it's kind of doing what I can and then not worrying about it. And the other thing that we're doing is working with our team to get them doing more project management as well. So again, that's just a different way of thinking about it, because you have to think about things as like teaching opportunities, if you like. So it's much more an opportunity to learn if things haven't gone smoothly A to B, but actually you've had a few minor diversions along the way. It really helps them learn as well. So I try and be positive about the things that come along as well.
Yes. Yeah. No, you said at the beginning it was glib, saying try not to have them happen too often. I think we should all be striving for those those days, definitely. And what about those days where you get to live more? And that's where I talk about getting to do more of the things that you want to do and less of the stuff that you don't want to do. What do they look like for you?
Again, I think it's easy to think about holidays and sitting on a beach or whatever it is that you can like to do. And actually, I genuinely try to make my normal days the way I want them to be, because we have more normal days than we do have, holiday days or whatever. So I'd always like to fit in some exercise, always have the dog walk, ideally first thing, because I just find that sets me up for the day. And if I can do something that means that I've had chance to go into finding some insights out of some data that can really make a difference, the projects that we do, they can make a very big difference to the clients and their businesses. So if we can find something that I know is an insight that for them is really useful, then that always makes me, that makes it a good day for me, because the ability to pull together those different forms of data is it's fascinating. It's like the satisfaction you get from doing a complicated jigsaw puzzle or crossword puzzle or something like that.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that bit as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously sleeping well, with what I've said with Matthew Walker. So making sure I've had a good sleep as well. That'd be a good day.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And thanks for that recommendation again. I'm ready to download it as as I go on the podcast. So thank you, Sue. It's been really interesting talking to you and getting the other side of the story in productivity terms. Tell us more about how people can get in contact with you and find out more.
Our website is rethinkproductivity.co.uk. So there's lots of information about what we do there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Sue Hedaux, and Rethink Productivity's got a slot on LinkedIn as well. So they're the best ways to get in touch with us.
Lovely. Thanks, Sue. Thanks for your time today.
Great. Thanks, Jo.
All this information is available in the show notes. If you go to powertolivemore.com/, in this case 174, then you'll find them there. And this week I just want to talk about 30 days of inspiration to help you to avoid burnout and fatigue. I was spending some time over the weekend looking at the free information that I have available on my website that is there but is fairly well hidden. And I was working out how I could make it more visible. And I did quite a bit of work in terms of turning this 30 days of inspiration that I ran, I think, about a year ago. And it was as a sort of broadcast email thing. So people signed up, and for 30 days I sent them the email with a connection to my blog, and they got the tips and strategies about avoiding burnout and fatigue. I always intended turning it into an evergreen opportunity so that you could just sign up any time and get 30 days of inspiration from then, but then never did anything about it, and had a look at it over the weekend, as I said. And so I've now set it up so that you can get access to that now. And I'm just working on a resources page that will be available on the website so that all the things that I offer will appear there and be available. And part of that was to look at my Aweber setup and think about how to tag people based on their interests in order to share the relevant content at the relevant time. So it was a bit of work, but I'm really pleased that I've actually got that one sorted out, and now I've got a few more to work on as well. But anyway, if you're feeling a bit burnt out or worrying that you're going to be, and that burnout and fatigue might be an issue, then you might want to get the tips and strategies that I share in my 30 days of inspiration. So to do that, all you need to do is go to powertolivemore.com/inspiration burnout. And that will take you to the sign up page. Just pop your name and email in there. And then it'll ask you to go to your email and confirm that you want to be on my mailing list, and you'll start getting those emails. If you're already on my email list, it won't ask you to confirm you want to be on it. It'll just tag your record and you'll start getting the emails straight away. So don't worry if you don't get that email asking you that. So again, that's powertolivemore.com/inspiration burnout. Again, the show notes for this week's show are at powertolivemore.com/174, and we look forward to speaking to you next week.
Use your power to live more.